What if humanity is not the beginning, but only the continuation? What if we are living in the shadow of something older, something erased so completely that only silence remains? Imagine it. Vast cities swallowed by oceans, knowledge scattered into dust, voices fading into the layers of stone. And here we stand, convinced that we are the first, unaware that perhaps we are not even close. The earth is unimaginably old. 4.5 billion years have passed since it first took shape. In that span, mountains have risen and fallen, oceans have dried and returned, continents have drifted like slow-moving islands across the globe. Against this vast time scale, human history is almost invisible. Our first tools appeared a few million years ago, our first civilizations only a few thousand. To the planet, we are no more than a breath. And in that silence, the question lingers. If there had been another civilization, millions or even hundreds of millions of years before us, would we even know? Here lies the first conflict. We like to believe that the past is knowable, that if something had been here, we would have found its traces by now. But stone erases, oceans erase, fire, ice, and time erase. Even our tallest skyscrapers, if left abandoned, would crumble to nothing within a few tens of thousands of years. 1 million years would erase them entirely. 10 million would leave no hint that they had ever existed. If our own memory could vanish so easily, how could we ever be certain that nothing came before? This thought leads to a strange kind of humility. We are used to imagining ourselves as the pinnacle, the crown of evolution, the first to create, the first to dream of stars. But perhaps we are not a crown at all, only another petal in a flower that blooms again and again. Civilizations may rise, shine brightly, and collapse, each leaving behind nothing but questions. We may not be the authors of the story, but simply the latest characters in a drama far older than we know. And here comes the mini-climax. What if this silence is not emptiness, but invitation? What if the absence of evidence is not proof of our uniqueness, but proof of how fragile civilization truly is? It suggests that greatness does not guarantee permanence, that intelligence does not guarantee survival, that even the most advanced beings can be erased by forces greater than themselves, forces of time, nature, or their own mistakes. This thought can be unsettling, but it can also be strangely calming, because it reminds us that impermanence is universal. Nothing is eternal, not mountains, not stars, not even civilizations. If there were others before us, they too lived, struggled, dreamed, and faded. And if one day we join them, our disappearance will not be failure. It will be part of the rhythm of existence. And before we go further into this journey, let me ask something small, something simple, something that makes this vast thought feel close and human. Where are you watching from tonight, and what time is it there? Your answers feel like sparks in the dark, like small fires scattered across the world, each one a reminder that we are here together in this moment, even while we speak of ages long gone. So if this story keeps you company tonight, helps you rest, or simply fills your thoughts with wonder, you are welcome to leave a quiet trace, a like, a comment, or simply your presence. Or you can drift into sleep without leaving anything at all. For even in the silence of forgotten civilizations, there is peace to be found. Before there were humans, there was only Earth. Not the world we know now with its cities and its noise, but a planet that moved through cycles of fire and silence, creation and erasure. To imagine another civilization before us, we must first face a humbling truth. Most of Earth's history is missing to us. Not because it never happened, but because time is the most ruthless editor. The planet is 4.5 billion years old. By contrast, anatomically modern humans have walked the Earth for only about 300,000 years. Our earliest writing appeared just 5,000 years ago. What is 5,000 years against 4.5 billion? It is less than a heartbeat. It means that almost all of Earth's story unfolded without us. Civilizations could have risen and fallen countless times in the dark ocean of that past, and we would never know, unless they left something indestructible behind. Here lies the conflict. When we speak of history, we often imagine it as a straight line, beginning in caves and marching forward toward progress. But that is not how the planet works. Time folds, continents shift, oceans rise, forests burn. In 100 million years, an entire mountain range can rise, crumble, and vanish. Cities of steel and glass would not last even a fraction of that span. Stone erodes, metal rusts, glass shatters. Even plastic, which we see as eternal, will eventually break down into invisible fragments. If another civilization once walked this earth, its traces may already be gone, scattered too finely for us to see. And yet, there are moments when the silence feels suspicious. When we look at the sheer immensity of geological time, it is difficult to accept that intelligence appeared only once, and so recently. Why not earlier? Why not many times? Why should we assume that we are the first to look at the stars and wonder? And here comes the mini-climax. This thought cracks open our sense of certainty. It reminds us that the earth is not a stage built for us, but an ancient theater in which countless performances have already played and ended. We are not the whole story. We are a late act, standing on a stage layered with forgotten scripts, burned backdrops, and the ashes of dramas no one remembers. This can feel unsettling, but it can also bring a deep calm, because it shows that our fragility is natural, that even if we vanish one day, the earth will continue, life will continue, and perhaps, someday, another intelligence will stand where we stand now, asking the same questions, wondering if they are the first. If the past is hidden, then stone is the book where the earth has written what little it allows us to read. Layers of rock stretch back through time, each one a page of history pressed down by weight and silence. Fossils lie embedded within, whispers of forms that lived and vanished. Volcanic ash marks disasters. Sediment marks oceans that came and went. Yet even this immense record is incomplete. Most of the book is missing, torn out by erosion, crushed by pressure, melted back into fire. To grasp this is to see how much space there is for the unknown. Consider this. The oldest rocks on Earth are over 4 billion years old, but they are rare. Most of the planet's surface is much younger, replaced again and again by shifting tectonic plates. In fact, nearly every trace of Earth's earliest history has been destroyed. If a civilization existed hundreds of millions of years ago, what evidence could survive? Very little, perhaps nothing at all. Here lies the conflict. On the one hand, we trust science to tell us that life grew slowly, from cells to fish to reptiles to mammals, with intelligence emerging late. On the other hand, we know that the geological record is full of gaps. Whole ages are missing. Entire ecosystems have been erased. Between the lines of stone, there is silence, and in that silence, there is room for the unthinkable. Imagine compressing Earth's history into a single calendar year. Modern humans would appear only in the last few minutes of December 31st. Our civilizations, our stories, our skyscrapers, all of them would exist for only a blink before midnight. That leaves the rest of the year, 11 months and 29 days, uninhabited by us. Could another intelligence have lived in that expanse of time? Could they have walked their own path, built their own world, and left no trace that we can find now? And here comes the mini-climax. The stone does not say no. It only stays silent. Silence is not proof of absence. Silence is simply the space where possibility hides. We may look at the layers of the earth and see only fossils and minerals, but beneath what is written, there may have been whole chapters erased, civilizations pressed out of existence, their memory crushed into dust and folded back into the mantle. This thought is humbling. It reminds us that history is not a straight path, but a fragile thread, that our record of the past is less like a library and more like a handful of scraps, fragile, incomplete, and easily lost. And if this is true, then the question becomes not whether there was another civilization, but whether we will one day share their fate, our own chapter erased by time, leaving nothing but silence for those who come after. If stone is silent, then myths are not. Long before writing, long before science, people told stories, and in those stories, echoes of forgotten worlds linger. Almost every culture carries legends of a people before them, a golden age lost, or a civilization that fell into the sea. Perhaps these are only metaphors, but perhaps they are something more, whispers of memories that survived long enough to be reshaped into myth. Consider the Greeks, who spoke of Atlantis, a great city swallowed by the ocean in a single night. Was it only a tale to warn against pride, or could it have been a distant echo of something real? The Maya told of previous worlds destroyed by flood and fire, each one ending before the present humanity began. The Hindus speak of vast cycles of ages, civilizations rising and falling in endless repetition. Even in Norse myth, the gods themselves live under the shadow of Ragnarok, a cataclysm that wipes the slate clean, only for the cycle to begin anew. Here lies the conflict. Modern eyes see myth as fiction, symbols, not facts. But if humanity has such a short memory, if even great empires fade within centuries, how else could fragments of older truths survive? Perhaps the only way knowledge of an earlier civilization could reach us is not through stone or steel, but through story, blurred, exaggerated, reshaped, yet carrying a spark of something once real. Think of how memory works in individuals. A child remembers a house, but years later the details are gone. Only impressions remain. Could myth be the memory of civilization itself, retold across generations until the facts dissolved, leaving only symbols behind? The flood becomes the ocean's hunger. The fire becomes divine wrath. The fall of cities becomes the end of the world. And yet behind the metaphor, the possibility remains. Maybe something really did fall, and myth is how it was kept alive. Barely. And here comes the mini-climax. When so many cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, tell of lost ages, it becomes harder to dismiss them all as coincidence. Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, the drowned lands of Celtic legend, the vanished cities of Central Asia. Why do humans everywhere carry the same memory of a world before theirs, destroyed and gone? Could it be that our myths are not fantasies, but fingerprints of another age? This thought is not proof, but it is enough to open the door. It invites us to look at myth not with the cold eyes of dismissal, but with the quiet respect we give to dreams. Because sometimes dreams remember what waking life forgets. And perhaps myths are the dreams of humanity, carrying memories too fragile to survive in stone, yet too important to vanish completely. If myths are whispers, then artifacts are fragments, small, stubborn pieces of matter that seem to defy the order we have written into history. They are called ooh parts, out-of-place artifacts, objects found where they should not exist. Each one is debated, explained, dismissed, and yet their presence lingers, like cracks in the wall of certainty. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, pulled from a shipwreck in Greece over 2,000 years old. A device of gears so precise it could track the movements of the heavens, built long before such complexity was thought possible. We accept it now as genius ahead of its time. But what if it was not ahead, but a faint echo of something remembered from further back? Or think of the Baghdad battery, a clay jar from 2,000 years ago that seems capable of holding an electric charge. Was it really used for power or simply for ritual? We cannot be sure. But even the question unsettles us, because it forces us to admit how easily knowledge can be lost, rediscovered, and lost again. Here lies the conflict. On the one hand, science insists that humanity's path has been slow, from stone to bronze to iron to silicon. On the other, the earth keeps giving us objects that whisper, maybe not so slow, maybe not so simple. A hammer found encased in stone, a spark plug in ancient rock, footprints that seem far older than they should be. Most are dismissed, explained away as misidentifications or hoaxes, but the feeling remains that history is not as neat as we want it to be. The strangeness is not only in objects, but in ruins. Stone cut with such precision that even modern tools struggle to replicate it. Blocks weighing hundreds of tons, moved as though weight meant nothing. Staircases carved for giants, tunnels that lead nowhere, patterns etched into the earth so vast they can only be seen from the sky. Did we truly build these things with the tools we say we had? Or are we looking at the remains of something older, absorbed into our story because we had no category for it? And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps these artifacts are not anomalies at all. Perhaps they are fragments of a different chapter scattered by time into the wrong pages of our book. Not enough to prove, not enough to reconstruct, just enough to remind us that the past is deeper than we imagine. This thought changes how we see a simple object. A shard of metal in the wrong layer of rock is not just a mistake of geology. It is a reminder that we are building our story on incomplete evidence, that what we call certainty may be only convenience, and that hidden in the silence of stone there may be countless other fragments waiting, each one a whisper of civilizations erased. If artifacts are fragments, then megaliths are monuments. They stand in silence, vast and immovable, weathered by centuries yet still commanding the land around them. Stonehenge in England, the Moai of Easter Island, the great pyramids of Giza, the temples of Baalbek, the terraces of Sacsayhuaman, each one a puzzle, a question written in stone. The hook is this: we know that humans are capable of building wonders. We know that labor, ingenuity, and time can move mountains. But some structures stretch the limits of what we can comfortably explain. Stones weighing hundreds of tons moved with precision, blocks cut and fitted so tightly that even a blade cannot slip between them. alignments so exact with the stars that they seem to reflect not just strength, but astronomical knowledge far beyond what we assume. Here lies the conflict. If we accept the conventional view, then these are the triumphs of early humanity, proof that our ancestors were far more ingenious than we give them credit for. But if we look through the lens of forgotten civilizations, another possibility arises. What if these megaliths are not the beginnings of human knowledge, but its remnants? What if the reason we marvel at them is not because they were the first, but because they were echoes of something older, remembered dimly and carried forward into new hands? Consider Baalbek in Lebanon, where the foundation stones weigh over 1,000 tons. Even with today's machines, moving them would be an extraordinary challenge. How were they transported and placed in antiquity? Or think of the trilithons of Stonehenge aligned perfectly with the solstices, a calendar written in stone. Were these achievements the spark of human genius alone, or the faint survival of techniques passed down from somewhere deeper in time? And here comes the mini-climax. The megaliths may not be proof of another civilization, but they are proof of something unsettling. Knowledge does not rise in a straight line. It flares, it flickers, it fades. What is lost can be rediscovered. What is discovered can be lost again. The great stones remind us that our certainty about the progress of humanity may be an illusion. That history is not a ladder, but a cycle of remembering and forgetting. Standing before a pyramid or a circle of stones, one feels both awe and unease. Awe at the scale, the vision, the endurance of the builders. Unease at the thought that we may be missing part of the story, that these works are not simply the first steps of humanity, but footprints overlapping with others, blurred by time until we can no longer tell whose they truly were. When we imagine civilizations before us, we often think in terms of mystery, vanished continents, erased empires. But there is a quieter possibility, one we already know is true, that other kinds of humans walked the earth before we did. Not myths, not speculation, but bones in the ground, DNA in our blood. Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, shadows of humanity that rose, thrived, and then disappeared. The hook is stark. For most of our existence, we were not alone. Modern humans shared the planet with others who were intelligent, resourceful, and deeply human in ways we cannot dismiss. Neanderthals cared for their sick, buried their dead, and made art. Denisovans left traces of advanced genetic adaptations, allowing survival in harsh, high-altitude environments. The hobbits of Flores carved tools and lit fires. These were not beasts, they were kin, and yet they are gone. Here lies the conflict. Science tells us that modern humans either absorbed these others through interbreeding or outcompeted them for survival. But what if that is not the whole story? What if these vanished humans represent not the margins of evolution, but the remnants of earlier experiments, attempts at intelligence that did not endure? If so, then even within our own genus, we see the cycle at work. Rise, thrive, vanish. Their disappearance unsettles us because it forces us to confront fragility. If Neanderthals could master fire, art, and tools, why are they gone while we remain? Was it chance? An eruption? A shift in climate? Was it conflict, with our ancestors pushing them aside? Or was it simply the test of time, measuring which branch would continue the story? If civilizations could vanish before they even truly began, then what hope do ours have of permanence? And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps the lost humans are not failures, but warnings. They remind us that intelligence is no guarantee of survival, that to be capable of art, of love, of imagination is not enough to escape extinction. They were as human as we are, and yet time erased them. Their bones in caves, their genes inside us, are all that remain. This thought humbles. It strips away the illusion of inevitability. We like to believe that our presence here was certain, that humanity was destined to rise. But the truth whispered by Neanderthals and Denisovans is different. We are here not because we had to be, but because others were not. And if the story of intelligence has already ended more than once, then perhaps it will end again, even for us. If entire species of humans could vanish, then perhaps we should widen the lens further, because history, the deep history of Earth, is written not only in bones and tools, but in endings, mass extinctions, catastrophes so immense that most life on the planet was erased in the span of geological moments. These were not gentle fades. They were abrupt, violent resets, wiping clean what had thrived for millions of years. The hook is unsettling. At least 5 times in Earth's history, life itself nearly ended. The Ordovician extinction, when the seas retreated and most marine creatures vanished. The Devonian extinction, silencing reefs that had flourished for millennia. The Permian extinction, the greatest of them all, when 90% of all species disappeared. The Cretaceous extinction, when an asteroid ended the reign of the dinosaurs. And between these great events, countless smaller ones, silent forgotten resets. Here lies the conflict. If life is fragile enough to be undone in a single geological heartbeat, what chance does civilization have? We imagine ourselves as masters of Earth, but we are only guests on a stage that has burned and rebuilt itself again and again. Every extinction cleared the slate, creating space for new forms of life, new possibilities, new experiments. If there had been civilizations before us, how many might have been erased in these fires, their memories scattered before it could leave a trace? Consider the Permian extinction. 90% of species gone. Forests collapsed. Oceans turned toxic. It took millions of years for life to recover. If there had been intelligence then, what would remain now? Nothing. Not even a whisper. The rocks would carry the scars of catastrophe, but not the stories of the minds that once looked at the sky. And here comes the mini-climax. Extinctions are not only endings, they are beginnings. Each one reset the clock, giving rise to entirely new worlds. Without the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, mammals might never have risen. Without smaller resets, our ancestors might never have stepped out of the shadows. But this also means that if civilizations came before, they were not only destroyed, they were deliberately cleared away by the rhythm of Earth itself. This thought is both terrifying and comforting. Terrifying because it shows that nothing we build is safe from the planet's cycles. Comforting because it suggests that life itself endures, even when civilizations do not. We are not the first to face fragility. We are simply the latest. And perhaps one day, after us, something else will rise again in the silence we leave behind. Among scientists, the question of ancient civilizations is rarely raised. It sounds too much like myth, too much like fantasy. And yet, there is one serious proposal that dares to ask, if a civilization had existed millions of years before humans, would we even be able to find it? This is known as the Silurian hypothesis, named half in jest after reptilian beings from old science fiction. But behind the playful name is a profound and unsettling thought. The hook is sharp. Our record of Earth's past is thin. Most of the planet's surface is younger than 200 million years. Older crust is recycled, melted, reformed. If a civilization had thrived in the age of dinosaurs or even before, its cities and machines would be gone. Not buried, not hidden, erased. Only indirect signs might remain. Changes in climate, chemical signatures in the soil, anomalies in carbon layers. Civilization itself would vanish like smoke. Here lies the conflict. We assume intelligence is recent because we see no evidence otherwise. But the Silurian hypothesis reminds us that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It suggests that our tools, our plastics, our metals, even nuclear waste, would not last more than a few million years. Future geologists studying the Earth long after us would not find our skyscrapers or our roads. They would find only thin chemical scars, perhaps a strange spike of carbon, perhaps the faint trace of mass extinction. That would be all. And if that is true of us, then what of others? Could there have been a civilization in the Permian, or the Devonian, or even earlier? Could there have been minds that dreamed under skies where dinosaurs walked? The thought stretches the imagination, but it cannot be disproven. The rocks do not say no. They only stay silent. And here comes the mini-climax. The Silurian hypothesis reframes the mystery. It tells us that looking for skyscrapers in the fossil record is foolish. What we must look for are patterns. Sudden rises in carbon, unexplained metals, anomalies in isotopes. If we found such signs, we could not be sure whether they came from volcanoes, asteroids, or something else. But the possibility would remain: intelligence before humanity, lost to time. This idea humbles us. We imagine ourselves as unique, as the first to look up at the stars. But perhaps we are not. Perhaps we are only the most recent note in a song that has been played many times, each verse erased when the page was turned. And perhaps one day we too will be reduced to nothing more than a chemical scar, a thin line in the stone, leaving the next civilization to wonder, were we alone, or were there others before us? When we search for proof of forgotten civilizations, we imagine ruins waiting patiently beneath the soil, intact and untouched. We picture temples beneath jungles, cities buried in deserts, entire worlds frozen in time. But the earth is not a gentle archivist. It does not preserve for us. It erases. It reuses. It buries and transforms until even memory itself dissolves into stone. The hook is blunt. If our own civilization ended today, how long would its remains endure? Within decades, nature would breach every wall. Roots would split the concrete, vines would creep across glass and steel. Within centuries, skyscrapers would crumble. Within millennia, forests and rivers would sweep away what was left. In 1,000,000 years, the land would be clean, as if nothing had ever been built. Stretch that to 10 million, and even the idea of us would be gone. Here lies the conflict. We like to imagine permanence. The pyramids feel eternal. The Great Wall winds across hills like a spine that cannot break. But permanence exists only on the scale of human memory. On the scale of the earth, even mountains vanish. Glaciers grind stone into powder. Volcanoes bury landscapes in ash. Oceans rise, then fall, swallowing coastlines and giving them back only after they have been erased. Consider ice. During the last ice age, glaciers carved valleys and crushed landscapes beneath sheets a mile thick. Whatever might have stood there before is gone without trace. Consider water. Rising seas can drown a continent, scattering its ruins across the ocean floor, and that ocean floor is constantly recycled, pulled into the planet's mantle, and reborn as new crust. Consider wind and sand. A desert does not keep secrets for long. Its storms grind monuments into dust, scattering them so finely they become indistinguishable from the earth itself. And here comes the mini-climax. Once you see the scale of these forces, the absence of ruins no longer looks strange. It looks inevitable. A civilization millions of years old would not leave pyramids or palaces. It would leave only the faintest fingerprints, chemical shifts in stone, strange isotopes, subtle patterns in the fossil record. To expect otherwise is to misunderstand the earth. This realization is both sobering and liberating. Sobering, because it means that even we, with all our machines, our satellites, our towers of glass, will vanish in time, ground back into the crust. Liberating because it shows that impermanence is the natural state. We are not failures for being fragile. We are simply participants in the endless cycle of creation and erasure. So when we ask, where are the ruins of civilizations before us? The earth answers not with evidence, but with silence. And maybe that silence is not denial, but truth. The planet keeps no monuments, only memory hidden in patterns too subtle for most eyes to see. If another civilization rose long before us, what would it have been? We imagine them in our image, towers, cities, machines like ours. But perhaps that is the greatest mistake. A civilization older than humanity may not have looked human at all. It may not have built in stone or steel. Its form, its tools, even its sense of purpose could have been utterly different. The hook is this: intelligence is not bound to our shape. The earth has carried countless forms of life: reptilian, avian, aquatic, mammalian. At different times, any of these could have risen toward complexity. Dinosaurs thrived for over 150 million years, far longer than us. Could some branch of them have reached awareness, built societies, created symbols, only to vanish in the shadow of extinction? And if they had, would we even know? Here lies the conflict. We assume that civilization means fire, metal, architecture, but what if intelligence found another path? A species that shaped not stone, but biology, crafting living tools instead of machines. A culture that left no metal, no writing, only genetic changes in plants and animals that vanished with time. Or an aquatic civilization that built with coral and shell, leaving nothing behind once the seas shifted. If such worlds existed, their traces would be indistinguishable from nature itself. Consider this: what we define as progress may simply be our version of it. Stone to bronze, bronze to iron, iron to silicon. But another species, with another environment, could have built a completely different ladder, one that left no ruins, no artifacts, no obvious mark for us to find. Civilization, then, may not mean skyscrapers. It may mean patterns too subtle for us to recognize, even if we are standing on their remains. And here comes the mini-climax. The most advanced civilization before us may not have been grand or visible. It may have been invisible. It may have existed in harmony with the earth, erasing its own traces as it lived, vanishing completely when catastrophe came. To us, that looks like nothing. But perhaps nothing is the perfect evidence, because only a civilization that truly understood impermanence would leave no scars at all. This thought humbles our imagination. It reminds us that to search for others is not only to look for ourselves in the past, but to open our eyes to possibilities we cannot yet picture. And if we cannot imagine them clearly, then perhaps they are closer to truth than any image we could create. When we think of technology, we imagine wires and circuits, engines and machines. We measure progress by the weight of metal and the glow of screens. But technology, at its root, is simply the ability to shape the world with knowledge. And that means it does not have to look like ours at all. The hook is this: nature itself is already filled with technologies older and subtler than anything we have built. The brain of a dolphin is a living computer, capable of complex communication across oceans. Ant colonies create decentralized systems that solve problems without leaders, resembling algorithms running in soil and sand. Fungi weave underground networks that transmit signals between trees, an organic internet pulsing in the dark. If intelligence can grow in such forms, then why should we assume that a civilization before us would have chosen our path of stone, fire, and steel? Here lies the conflict. We search for ruins, for tools, for artifacts. But what if an earlier civilization left none? What if their mastery was biological, not mechanical? They could have engineered ecosystems instead of engines, cultivated living organisms to perform tasks we assign to machines. Such creations would vanish quickly after collapse, dissolving back into soil and water, leaving almost nothing for us to find. Imagine a society that bred plants to grow into architecture, vines into bridges, shells into vessels, or one that learned to manipulate genetic codes the way we manipulate silicon, designing creatures to carry out work. In time, all of it would decompose. No ruins, no metal, no stone, only fragments in the fossil record, indistinguishable from natural evolution. The earth would have absorbed their works entirely. And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps this is why we see nothing. Perhaps we are looking for the wrong signs. We search for skyscrapers, but what if the truest technology is the one that leaves no scars? A civilization that built with life itself would vanish completely, erasing itself so cleanly that the only evidence would be its absence. To us, this looks like emptiness, but to them, it might have been perfection. This thought reshapes what we mean by progress. Our machines may not be the pinnacle, but simply one expression of intelligence. Another species, another age, might have chosen a path where technology was indistinguishable from nature. And if so, then maybe the greatest civilizations are not the ones that leave behind towering monuments, but the ones that leave behind nothing at all. If fragments of civilizations can be hidden in stone, then perhaps echoes survive in story. Across cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, tales emerge of entire lands that vanished beneath the sea. They are called myths, but they repeat with uncanny persistence, as if humanity itself remembers something it cannot fully explain. The hook is familiar yet haunting. Atlantis. Plato's story of a great island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, rich in knowledge and power, swallowed by the ocean in a single night of fire and waves. To many, it is allegory, a warning against pride. Yet the image has endured for millennia, its shadow falling over every discussion of forgotten civilizations. But Atlantis is not alone. In the Pacific, Polynesian traditions tell of lands lost to the sea, remembered in chants and navigational lore. In Hindu texts, the land of Kumarikandam is said to have sunk beneath the Indian Ocean, taking entire cultures with it. In the Americas, Maya and Aztec legends speak of great floods that ended earlier ages of the world, and in the 19th century, the idea of Mu and Lemuria, vast lost continents in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, caught imaginations, built from both speculation and fragments of cultural memory. Here lies the conflict. Scholars dismiss these tales as metaphors, inventions, or misunderstandings of geology. And perhaps they are. But what if they are also distorted memories? If seas have risen and fallen countless times, if coastlines have shifted and drowned, why could there not have been cultures whose homes were erased by the ocean? If an island civilization fell beneath the waves 10,000 or even 50,000 years ago, what would remain today? Almost nothing, only stories. And here comes the mini-climax. The persistence of flood myths across the world may not be coincidence. From Mesopotamia's Epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical Noah, from Aboriginal Australian legends to tales from the Arctic, cultures everywhere remember waters that rose, worlds that ended, and people who vanished. Perhaps these are not literal accounts of a single event, but collective memories of many, fragments of lost coastlines, drowned valleys, and maybe even lost civilizations. This thought reframes myth. It reminds us that story is not only invention, but survival. Knowledge too fragile to endure in stone can sometimes live in memory, passed across generations until it becomes song, ritual, legend. When the land itself is gone, only voices remain. And sometimes voices are all the evidence we will ever have. If myths tell us what may have been lost, then ruins show us what somehow endured. Across the world, ancient architecture challenges our assumptions. Vast stone blocks, precise cuts, alignments with stars, structures so complex that even today they stir debate. Were these simply the triumphs of human ingenuity, or are they traces of knowledge carried from deeper sources, fragments of something older than recorded history? The hook begins with the pyramids of Giza. For centuries, they have stood against desert winds, their geometry so precise that even modern engineers marvel at the effort required. We know they were tombs, but their scale and perfection suggest more. Mastery of mathematics, astronomy, and labor organization far beyond what we once believed possible for that age. Did this knowledge rise suddenly, or was it preserved from somewhere else? Here lies the conflict. Similar enigmas appear across continents. At Sacsayhuaman in Peru, walls are built from stones weighing over 100 tons, fitted so precisely that not even a blade can slip between them. At Baalbek in Lebanon, foundation blocks weigh over 1,000 tons. Their purpose still debated. On Easter Island, Moai statues stand watch, some weighing over 80 tons, moved across rugged terrain without wheels or beasts of burden. How were such feats achieved? By brute force and patience alone, or by methods we have forgotten? And the mystery deepens with alignments. Stonehenge in England marks solstices with precision. The pyramids align with Orion's belt. Ancient temples in Central America mirror celestial cycles. Were these coincidences or evidence of advanced astronomical knowledge passed down through means we cannot trace? And here comes the mini-climax. These structures may not prove a forgotten civilization, but they prove something undeniable. Knowledge does not always move forward. Sometimes it flares, then fades. Skills are mastered, then lost, leaving behind monuments that seem impossible until rediscovered. The stones themselves are not just walls. They are reminders that human memory is fragile and that wisdom, once forgotten, feels indistinguishable from mystery. This thought humbles us. It suggests that what we call ancient may not always be primitive, that what we dismiss as superstition may have roots in knowledge we have not yet regained, and that every monument left behind is not only a triumph of its builders, but a quiet whisper from the past. You do not know the whole story. If stones endure, stories do not. Knowledge is fragile, and memory is easily lost. A civilization may rise with brilliance, but without preservation, its light fades quickly. What survives is not the fullness of its wisdom, but fragments, broken myths, half-remembered songs, ruins stripped of meaning. The greatest danger to civilization is not always catastrophe. Sometimes it is simply forgetting. The hook is sobering. Writing itself is a recent invention. For most of human existence, knowledge was carried in voices, passed from elders to children, from storytellers to listeners. A single broken chain, a generation silenced by famine, by war, by displacement, and whole libraries of memory could vanish. Even when writing appeared, it was vulnerable. Clay tablets crumbled, papyrus rotted, parchment burned. A single fire in the library of Alexandria erased centuries of thought. What then of civilizations without any written record at all? Here lies the conflict. We assume knowledge accumulates, but often it does not. It rises, then falls. Techniques mastered by one generation may be forgotten by the next. Consider Roman concrete, whose recipe was lost for centuries, or Greek fire, a weapon whose formula remains unknown. Consider Mayan astronomy, more precise than European systems of the same era, nearly erased until rediscovered by modern scholars. If we can lose knowledge so easily in just a few centuries, how much more could have been lost across thousands or millions of years? And knowledge is not only practical, it is meaning itself. A temple without context becomes only stone. A statue without its story becomes only shape. Without the thread of memory, we inherit ruins we cannot interpret. We stand among them, marveling at their size, but blind to the reasons they were built. A forgotten civilization may not need to vanish physically. It vanishes when we no longer understand it. And here comes the mini-climax. The fragility of memory means that civilizations do not need fire or flood to disappear. They can simply dissolve into silence, their wisdom evaporating till only shadows remain. We may walk on the same ground, touch the same stones, and never know who was there before us. Their voices do not need to be silenced by catastrophe. Time alone is enough. This thought is both unsettling and gentle. Unsettling, because it shows how temporary our own knowledge may be. Gentle, because it reminds us that forgetting is part of being human. We are not failures for losing the past. We are only participants in the endless rhythm of remembering and forgetting, building and erasing, speaking and falling silent. If civilizations before us have risen and fallen, if knowledge has flared and faded, if even entire species of humans have disappeared, what does that say about us? Are we different, or are we simply next in line? The question hangs heavy. If others were erased, why should we believe we will endure? The hook is sharp. Impermanence is the rule, not the exception. Dinosaurs ruled the earth for over 150 million years, yet they vanished in a geological instant. Neanderthals thrived across continents, and now they live only in fragments of our DNA. Entire ecosystems, entire worlds of life have collapsed again and again. Against this backdrop, humanity's time is not long. A few thousand years of civilization, a few hundred of industry, barely a blink. Why should our story be immune to the same fate. Here lies the conflict. We tell ourselves that we are different because we are intelligent, because we have technology, because we can shape the earth itself. But what if these are not protections, but vulnerabilities? What if intelligence makes us more fragile, not less? Our machines burn fuel that changes the climate. Our weapons can destroy entire cities. Our global networks connect us, but also make collapse more sudden, more total when it comes. The very tools we believe make us immortal may be the ones that hasten our end. And yet, the thought is not only grim, because if civilizations have risen before, then collapse is not the end of life. It is only the end of a chapter. After every extinction, life returned. After every silence, something new appeared. If others vanished, we still remain. And if we vanish, something else may come after us, as natural as sunrise following night. And here comes the mini-climax. To realize this is to confront humility. We are not guaranteed survival. We are not immune to the rhythm of Earth. But we are also not meaningless. If our civilization ends, it will not erase us. We will have been real. Our works, our dreams, our questions will have existed, even if they vanish without trace. And perhaps that is enough. This thought cuts both ways. It can frighten because it shows that all we build may crumble. But it can also soothe because it reminds us that nothing is wasted. Even civilizations that vanish leave behind influence in genes, in soil, in the quiet memory of the planet itself. If we too are destined to fade, then we will simply be part of the same endless cycle. If civilizations before us vanished, then what about ours? Are we truly different? Or are our vulnerabilities simply disguised beneath the glow of technology? We see ourselves as strong, global, connected, advanced. Yet beneath the surface, our world may be far more fragile than we imagine. The hook is stark. For all our progress, we remain tied to the same forces that shaped and ended civilizations before us: hunger, climate, conflict, and time. A drought can still break nations. A plague can still silence cities. A war can still undo decades of stability. We like to think technology has lifted us above these threats, but in truth, it has only woven them into larger, more dangerous webs. Here lies the conflict. The very systems that make us powerful also make us vulnerable. Our cities depend on invisible networks, electricity grids, satellites, supply chains. If one thread snaps, the whole fabric trembles. A single failure in digital systems can paralyze finance, transport, communication. In earlier times, collapse was local. A kingdom could fall while the world went on. But in our age, collapse would be global, sudden, and difficult to recover from. And then there is the Earth itself. We push its climate with fire from our machines, altering air and ocean. Storms grow stronger, seas rise, crops wither in places that once flourished. We build walls against the water, but the tide keeps coming. The same forces that ended worlds before us, fire, ice, flood, are stirring again. And this time, the cause is not only nature, but us. And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps we are not less fragile than earlier civilizations, but more. For all our strength, we are balanced on sharper edges. The more we build, the more we have to lose. The more we connect, the faster collapse can spread. Intelligence has given us power, but it has also multiplied our risks. This thought can be frightening, but it can also bring perspective. Fragility does not mean failure. It means honesty. To admit our vulnerabilities is to see ourselves clearly, not as untouchable masters, but as participants in the same story that has unfolded for millions of years. And perhaps by recognizing our weakness, we can learn to live differently, not as conquerors of the earth, but as caretakers, aware that our survival is never guaranteed, but always possible. If earlier civilizations fell, perhaps they did not need asteroids or ice ages to end them. Perhaps the greatest danger comes not from outside, but from within. Civilizations carry seeds of their own undoing. They rise through growth and innovation, and in that same growth lies the trap. The hook is direct, the earth gives, but it also measures. Every civilization depends on soil, water, air. To thrive, it consumes them. But take too much, too quickly, and the balance breaks. Forests vanish, rivers dry, soil loses its fertility. What once gave life begins to collapse. History is full of such stories. The Maya, the Akkadians, the Easter Islanders, cultures that reached heights of brilliance only to stumble when their environment could no longer support them. If this happened on small scales before, what happens when the entire world is one civilization, bound together by the same risks? Here lies the conflict. We believe ourselves different because we command machines, satellites, global trade. But in truth, we are more exposed. Never before has a civilization depended so heavily on resources extracted at such speed. Oil, coal, metals, pulled from the ground in amounts that reshape the planet itself. Our appetite has changed the atmosphere, warmed the oceans, shifted the climate. This is not an external threat. It is our own creation. And technology, for all its brilliance, deepens the trap. To solve one problem, we create another. Fertilizers feed billions but poison rivers. Plastics preserve food but choke the seas. Energy powers cities but fuels storms. Each solution carries a cost, hidden until it can no longer be ignored. The very tools that built our strength are also building our vulnerability. And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps this is not unique to us. Perhaps every civilization that rose before faced the same paradox, the need to grow and the limits of growth. Some may have found balance for a time. Others may have burned through their world until nothing remained. In the silence of their absence, we can almost hear the lesson. Intelligence alone does not guarantee survival. Wisdom does. This thought carries both warning and calm. Warning because it shows how easily our brilliance can turn to blindness, our progress to peril. Calm because it reminds us that this pattern is not ours alone. If others fell into the same traps, then we are not uniquely doomed. We are simply part of a cycle the earth has seen before. The question is not whether fragility exists. It is whether we can learn in time to live within it. If our civilization were to vanish tomorrow, what would remain for those who might come after us? Not our cities, not our machines. Stone crumbles, metal rusts, glass shatters. 1,000,000 years would erase almost everything we know, and yet there may be traces, subtle, strange, unsettling. The hook is vivid, shadows burned into stone. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when the bombs fell, the heat was so intense that human bodies left imprints, outlines seared into walls and pavement. These nuclear shadows are haunting reminders of destruction. But imagine them after thousands of years. The walls would crumble, the pavement dissolve. Only the faintest residue might linger in the soil. Isotopes not naturally present, signatures of a violence that reshaped the very atoms of the earth. Here lies the conflict. Archaeologists of the future or of another species would not find our skyscrapers or our books. They would find chemical anomalies, layers of plastic in the soil, spikes of carbon in the atmosphere, traces of radioactive decay in rock. These would not look like monuments. They would look like scars, proof not of our greatness, but of our fragility. Consider this. Plutonium-244 has a half-life of 80 million years. Cesium-137 and strontium-90 decay more quickly, but their traces linger for centuries. If a future intelligence were to dig through our layers of Earth, they might find pockets of radiation, unusual isotopes, the ghost of our weapons. To them, it would be clear that something once lived here, something that mastered fire on a scale no natural process could explain. And here comes the mini-climax. The greatest evidence of our civilization may not be our art or our architecture, but our mistakes. Our shadow in time may be a thin radioactive line, a chemical fingerprint marking the Anthropocene, the age when humans altered the planet. That scar could outlast us all, speaking silently long after every word we've written has turned to dust. This thought unsettles, but it also softens, because it shows that permanence does not come from what we choose to preserve. It comes from what we cannot erase. And perhaps civilizations before us left scars too, anomalies in stone, unexplained patterns in sediment. We may look at them now and see only geology, but perhaps long ago they were the shadows of another world. Every question we have asked so far leads to a deeper one. What does it mean to be temporary? If civilizations before us rose and vanished, if even we may leave behind nothing more than a scar in stone, then what is the meaning of our brief moment under the sun? The hook is simple, but piercing. To be human is to exist between two immensities. The immensity of the past we cannot see, and the immensity of the future we will not live to witness. Against that horizon, our lives, our cultures, our histories feel impossibly small. Yet it is in this very smallness that meaning begins to emerge. Here lies the conflict. We long for permanence. We build monuments to last. We write books to be remembered. We carve names into stone as if stone itself could resist eternity. But time dissolves everything. Even the mountains we look to as eternal will one day crumble. The stars themselves are not forever. If permanence is impossible, then why do we strive so hard to leave a trace? Is it foolishness, or is it the essence of being alive? And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps impermanence is not a flaw, but the condition that gives life weight. A civilization that believed itself eternal might have no reason to create, no urgency to love, no desire to question. But we, knowing we are temporary, create precisely because we know it will not last. The fleetingness of life is not emptiness, it is intensity. The brief fire burns brighter because it knows it cannot endure. This thought softens the fear of erasure. If other civilizations existed before us and vanished, their absence does not mean they were meaningless. It means their moment was theirs. Their dreams were real while they lived them, just as ours are real now. The truth of their existence does not depend on whether we remember them, and the truth of ours does not depend on what survives us. To be temporary is to belong to the rhythm of the earth. Birth and death, rise and fall, memory and forgetting. The cycle is endless, and we are part of it. We may long for permanence, but perhaps the greater wisdom is to accept our place in impermanence, to see it not as loss, but as belonging. When we speak of civilizations before humanity, We instinctively picture beings like ourselves, hands shaping tools, eyes watching the stars, minds building cities. But what if this is only projection? What if the builders of an earlier world were not human at all? The hook is unsettling. Intelligence is not bound to our form. Across Earth's history, countless species have risen and thrived. Dinosaurs ruled for 150 million years. Mammals spread across continents. Birds filled the skies, insects the air, cephalopods the seas. Could one of them have crossed the threshold we think only we have crossed? The leap from survival to reflection, from instinct to civilization. Here lies the conflict. We measure intelligence by human standards, language, tools, symbols, culture. But intelligence may take other forms. Octopuses already display problem-solving abilities, tool use, even individuality. Crows shape sticks into hooks. Dolphins communicate with complex signals, perhaps even names. These are glimpses of possibilities. Given millions of years, could such species have risen further, built societies, created knowledge? If they had, and if they fell, would we recognize their traces now? Consider the dinosaurs. For millions of years, they were the dominant life on Earth. Among them were small, agile species with large brains relative to their bodies. Some paleontologists speculate that if the asteroid had not struck, one lineage might have continued to evolve intelligence. Could it be that such intelligence had already emerged before catastrophe struck? The rock record would never reveal it directly. And here comes the mini-climax. If there was another civilization, it might not have walked upright, built in stone, or written in symbols. It might have swum in oceans, flown in skies, or lived in forms so alien we would not even recognize their works as civilization. We might be standing on the remnants of their world right now, mistaking their legacy for nature itself. This thought shifts perspective. It reminds us that humanity is not the measure of all things. We are not the only way intelligence can look. If others came before, they may have been unlike us in every way but one: the desire to shape, to create, to dream. And in that desire, they would have been kin, even across the gulf of time. When we imagine forgotten civilizations, we often place ourselves inside them. People with familiar faces, hands like ours, dreams like ours. But perhaps that is a mistake. Perhaps the greatest civilizations Earth has seen were never human at all. The hook is bold. What if the minds that came before us were shaped in bodies we would not even recognize? Not upright primates, but beings of scale, skin, and form so different that to us they would look like monsters or myths. We think of dragons, serpents, giants. But what if these legends are only blurred memories of beings that were real in some distant age? Here lies the conflict. We like to believe that intelligence must follow our path: tools, fire, writing, machines. But intelligence is not one path. It is many. A creature of the ocean might build civilization with sound, weaving songs into memory instead of carving symbols into stone. An insect-like species might create order through colonies, building cities from resin and clay that dissolve when their kind is gone. A reptilian mind might carve into the earth itself, leaving only tunnels and hollows, indistinguishable from natural caves after millions of years. Consider how different the earth once was. Before humans, forests of giant ferns covered continents. Insects the size of birds filled the skies. Reptiles grew to unimaginable size. If intelligence had emerged in such a world, its works would not resemble ours. They would not last in forms we could recognize. They would dissolve back into soil, rot with the forests, vanish with the tides. To us, they would look like nothing, but to them, they would have been everything. And here comes the mini-climax. The silence of the past may not mean emptiness. It may mean difference. We look for ourselves in history, but if the others were not like us, then their traces would be invisible, hiding in plain sight. A fossil we dismiss as a shell could have been a vessel. A pattern in stone we call erosion could have been design. We may have already touched their world without realizing it. This thought unsettles, but also softens, because it reminds us that being human is only one form of existence. If others lived before, they were no less real, no less meaningful, no less alive for being different. And though we may never know their names, their silence does not erase the truth that they, too, belong to the earth. If another civilization walked the earth before us, then one truth follows. We are not unique. Our story is not singular, not the first time intelligence has bloomed upon this planet. We may be the latest verse in a song already sung many times, each voice fading into silence before the next begins. The hook is unsettling. We live with the quiet belief that humanity is special, chosen, destined, set apart from all that came before. But what if that belief is only a comfort we give ourselves? What if the earth has birthed others before us and will birth others after? Then our uniqueness dissolves. We are extraordinary, yes, but not alone in being extraordinary. Here lies the conflict. For some, the thought that we are not unique feels like a loss. If others came before us, then we are no longer the first to dream of stars, to build cities, to wonder at existence. We are not the crown of creation, only one of many crowns that time has lifted, worn, and discarded. To those who seek permanence, this feels like diminishment, but perhaps it is the opposite. Perhaps it is liberation. If we are not unique, then our struggles are not solitary. Our dreams are not fragile outliers, but part of a greater pattern woven through the fabric of the earth itself. Intelligence is not an accident. It is a rhythm, repeating again and again, each time in a new form. To see ourselves as one expression among many does not make us smaller. It makes us belong. And here comes the mini-climax. The loss of uniqueness becomes the gain of connection. If others have lived before us, then we are not isolated in the great silence. We are kin across time, companions we will never meet, but companions nonetheless. Their civilizations may be dust, their voices gone, but the fact of their existence would make ours less lonely. We are part of a lineage invisible but real, a chain of minds that rose from the same soil and sea. This thought softens the weight of impermanence. We do not need to be unique to matter. We do not need to be eternal to be meaningful. If we are one among many civilizations, then our meaning lies not in being first or last, but in being here, now, carrying the fire while it burns, just as others did before and just as others may do after. From childhood, we are told that humanity is special. Our intelligence, our tools, our art, our cities, these are the proofs we hold up to show that we are different from every other form of life. But what if this is only an illusion? What if our sense of uniqueness is not truth, but comfort? The hook cuts sharply. We measure ourselves against animals and find no rivals, and so we conclude that we stand alone. Yet this is a trick of perspective. A mountain looks tallest when you forget it rises from a chain of peaks. Humanity feels unique because we look only at the present, not at the deep past. We forget that time stretches not in centuries, but in billions of years, more than enough for others to have risen, thrived, and fallen before us. Here lies the conflict. To admit we are not unique unsettles us. Our religions, our philosophies, our sciences all orbit the idea that we are set apart. To remove that center feels dangerous, even humiliating. If we are not the first, not the only, then what are we? Just another experiment. Just another verse in the Song of Earth? But illusion can be both comforting and blinding. Believing in our uniqueness has given us confidence, driven us to explore, to innovate, to reach the stars. Yet it has also led us to arrogance, to believe that we can do anything without consequence, that the earth belongs to us alone. What if recognizing our ordinariness is the lesson we most need, the one that could save us from repeating the mistakes of forgotten civilizations? And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps the real danger is not that we are fragile, but that we believe we are not. Civilizations before us may have thought the same, that they were chosen, exceptional, eternal. Their downfall, then, was not in weakness, but in blindness. To think we cannot fall is the surest way to ensure that we do. This thought humbles, but it also heals. If we let go of the illusion of uniqueness, we find something deeper, belonging. We are not the exception, but the continuation. Not a miracle set apart, but part of the earth's natural rhythm, as real and as fleeting as every form that came before. Our value does not come from being the only ones. It comes from being here at all. History feels solid to us. We open books, visit museums, walk among ruins, and believe we are seeing the past as it was. But this is illusion. What we call history is only a fraction of what once lived. Most of it is gone, lost to silence, erased not only by time, but by the choices of those who came after. The hook is sharp. Forgetting is not an accident. It is a force. Empires rewrite stories to glorify themselves. Victors erase the names of the defeated. Religions silence rival voices. Libraries burn either by chance or by design. In each act, memory is thinned. Whole worlds of thought vanish, sometimes deliberately, sometimes carelessly, until the past we inherit is not the truth, but a curated shadow of it. Here lies the conflict. If this happens in mere centuries, how much more is lost across millennia? Think of the Mayans. Their knowledge of astronomy rivaled that of modern science, yet most of their codices were burned by conquerors. Think of Mesopotamia, where clay tablets recorded daily life, philosophy, and science. Only fragments remain, the rest dissolved into mud or destroyed by war. Think of Africa, where oral traditions carried histories that vanished with the loss of storytellers. Even in recorded history, the gaps are enormous. What then of unrecorded civilizations erased long before us? Memory is fragile because it is selective. We do not preserve everything. We preserve what we think matters. And often we are wrong. What seems vital in one age is meaningless in the next. What seems ordinary may carry the deepest truths. The songs of a farmer, the drawings of a child, the rituals of a small village may hold more humanity than the monuments of kings. Yet these are the first to be lost. And here comes the mini-climax. When we look at history, we are not seeing the past. We are seeing only what survived, forgetting. The silence between the fragments may be larger than the fragments themselves. This means that the civilizations we know, Egypt, Rome, China, Mesopotamia, are not the whole story, but only the lucky survivors, the few whose voices were not fully erased. Others may have existed, flourished, and faded, leaving nothing but silence where their memory should be. This thought is unsettling, but it also carries peace. It shows that forgetting is natural. Just as individuals forget, so too does humanity. And perhaps this is not failure, but rhythm. To be remembered is rare, to be forgotten is common. Yet even in forgetting, the truth remains. Those lives were lived. Those civilizations were real. Their erasure does not undo their existence. It only places them beyond our reach. If there were civilizations before us, if others walked this earth long before humans, then a haunting question arises. Did they know we were coming? Did they ever sense that after their silence, another intelligence would rise to take their place? The hook is provocative. Imagine standing at the twilight of your world, aware that collapse is near. Floods rising, soil failing, stars indifferent. Would you wonder who might come after you? Would you leave signs, hoping to be remembered? Or would you accept that your time was enough and that those who follow must begin anew? Here lies the conflict. We like to imagine ourselves as the inheritors of all that came before, but if forgotten civilizations existed, we may not be their heirs at all. Their knowledge may not have reached us. Their language may not echo in ours. Their wisdom may have dissolved into dust. If they thought of us, they may have hoped we would carry their fire forward. Yet the truth is, we carry only silence. Whatever hopes they had, they did not survive. And yet, there is another possibility. Perhaps they did not hope for continuity. Perhaps they knew impermanence too well. To live with the rhythm of earth is to know that nothing endures. In such a world, the thought of successors may not be grief, but comfort. They may have accepted that others would rise in their place, not as heirs, but as equals in the endless cycle of becoming. And here comes the mini-climax. What if the deepest connection we share with forgotten civilizations is not memory, but empathy? The quiet recognition that they too once looked ahead into the unknown, wondering if they were the first or the last. Perhaps we are living the very question they once asked, repeating it across ages. Who will come after us? And what will they make of the silence we leave behind? This thought is both unsettling and soft. Unsettling because it reminds us that one day we too will be nothing but silence, and others may wonder who we were. Soft because it ties us to a lineage we cannot see, a chain of wonder stretching across the ages. If forgotten civilizations thought of us, then, in a way, we are answering their question simply by existing. And if we think of those who may come after us, perhaps we are already speaking to them through the silence of time. Every civilization believes it will endure. We build monuments, write laws, record stories, convinced that our memory will outlast the centuries. But the earth has seen countless such claims before, and time has answered each one the same way. Silence. The hook is sharp. Pride is a double-edged gift. It drives us to create, to innovate, to reach for the stars. But it also blinds us. We imagine permanence where there is none. We mistake survival for destiny. We believe that collapse is for others, never for us. And in that illusion, we repeat the same mistakes as those who came before. Here lies the conflict. Pride tells us we are unique. It whispers that no other civilization has reached our heights, that no other intelligence could compare. But what if this is illusion? What if the earth has heard this same song before, civilizations declaring themselves eternal only to vanish? Our pride may not set us apart, but bind us to the same cycle. The very belief that we cannot fall may ensure that we do. History is filled with warnings. The Roman Empire believed its reach unshakable, and it crumbled. The Maya built great cities that forests reclaimed. Mesopotamia thrived between rivers that later swallowed its fields with salt. Each thought itself mighty. Each became dust. Their pride was not wrong to celebrate their achievements. It was wrong to believe those achievements guaranteed survival. And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps forgotten civilizations too fell to pride. They may have exhausted their world, convinced it would continue to provide. They may have fought wars they believed they could not lose. They may have trusted too much in their permanence, only to find that nothing is permanent. Their silence now is a mirror of our own reflection, showing us not only what was, but what may be. This thought humbles, but it also frees. To accept that pride blinds us is to see clearly. We do not need to believe we are eternal in order to matter. We do not need to imagine ourselves above collapse in order to live fully. Instead, we can accept our fragility, our impermanence, and still create, not because it will last, but because it is real while it exists. The truth may be simple. Civilizations rise, civilizations fall. Pride does not stop the cycle, but humility may soften it, reminding us that meaning is not found in eternity, but in the brief fire we carry while it burns. If everything fades, if even the greatest civilizations are erased by time, then how should we live with that truth? For some, the thought is unbearable. Why build? Why dream? Why create, if all will vanish? Yet perhaps the question itself hides the answer. The hook is sharp but gentle. Impermanence is not the enemy of meaning. It is its condition. A flower is beautiful because it blooms briefly. A song moves us because it ends. A fire warms because it burns and then dies. In the same way, civilizations do not lose value because they fade. They gain value because they were real, if only for a time. Here lies the conflict. Our instinct is to cling to permanence. We want to believe that memory will save us, that ruins will stand forever, that our names will be carried forward. But the earth shows us otherwise. Memory is fragile. Stone erodes. Even stars burn out. Does that mean our efforts are worthless? Or does it mean that worth must be found not in duration, but in presence? Consider how we live as individuals. Each of us knows that life is finite. Yet we do not say our days are meaningless because they end. We say they are precious because they do. Why should civilizations be different? To last forever is not the measure of value. To exist at all is miracle enough. And here comes the mini-climax. Once we accept impermanence, life changes. We no longer build only for eternity. We build for now, for each other, for the brief beauty of creation in its moment. A poem matters, even if the paper burns. A city matters even if the forest will reclaim it. A civilization matters even if the earth will forget it. For the time it exists, it is true. This thought is not resignation. It is liberation. If all is temporary, then meaning is not bound to what endures. It is bound to what is lived. Forgotten civilizations, if they existed, were not failures because they vanished. They were lives lived, dreams dreamed, worlds real in their time. And so are we. To live with this truth is to let go of the fear of erasure. Our task is not to last forever. Our task is to burn brightly while we can, knowing that even when the flame goes out, it was real, and that is enough. When we think of legacy, we imagine eternity. We picture our work standing forever, our names carved into stone, our ideas carried endlessly forward. But eternity is not for us. The earth erases, time forgets, and nothing remains untouched. Perhaps meaning is not in the eternal, but in the temporary. The hook is tender, but piercing. The candle does not fail because it burns out. Its value lies in the light it gave while it lived. The flower does not fail because it withers. Its beauty is real because it blossoms for a moment. Why then do we believe civilizations fail when they fade? Perhaps their worth is measured not in their endurance, but in their existence. Here lies the conflict. Our fear of forgetting pushes us to seek permanence, monuments, archives, recordings, digital traces. We fight against time as if time were an enemy. But what if permanence is not the highest goal? What if the truest legacy is not to endure forever, but to matter deeply, even briefly, to leave a trace not in stone, but in hearts, in lives touched, in dreams sparked? Consider the forgotten civilizations we have imagined. Even if they left no ruins we can see, they may still have mattered profoundly in their moment. Their people loved, struggled, created, wondered. They left behind echoes in soil, perhaps even whispers in myth. And even if they are gone, their presence shaped the earth that eventually gave rise to us. Their legacy is not eternal. It is temporary, and yet it is real. And here comes the mini-climax. Perhaps the truest measure of civilization is not how long it endures, but how fully it lives in its time. The brilliance of art, the courage of survival, the depth of thought, these shine brightly in their moment even if the earth forgets them. To exist for a while is enough. To leave an eternal trace is unnecessary. This thought softens the weight of impermanence. It reminds us that we too are temporary, and that is not a failure. We need not be eternal to be meaningful. Our cities may fall, our words may fade, but while they are here, they matter. The purpose of a civilization is not to resist erasure. It is to live fully before it comes. So perhaps our legacy will not be monuments that endure for millions of years, but the brief fire of a moment well lived, a fire that warms those who come near it, even if it leaves no smoke for the future to see. Sometimes, in quiet moments, we feel it, a sudden familiarity, a scene unfolding that we swear we have already lived. A street we have never walked feels known. A word from a stranger feels remembered. We call it déjà vu, and science explains it as a trick of memory, a misfiring of the brain. But what if it is something else? What if these moments are echoes, faint signals from lives and civilizations long erased? The hook is unsettling yet soft. If memory can fail within a lifetime, why should it not also echo across ages? Perhaps what we feel in déjà vu is not our own past, but a resonance with patterns repeated through time. Standing in a place, we may unconsciously recognize a rhythm once lived by others, long forgotten, yet imprinted in the earth itself. Here lies the conflict. Science seeks measurable causes, and rightly so. Neural glitches, memory overlap, the brain mistaking the present for the past. But the mystery of déjà vu resists full explanation. Its intensity, its strangeness, the way it pierces ordinary life. It feels larger than a mere era. What if the sensation comes because we are touching something deeper? The invisible thread of civilizations before us, the shadows of their lives brushing against ours? Imagine this: a person walking through ruins they have never seen, suddenly overwhelmed by familiarity, or looking at the ocean and feeling, without reason, that something immense was once lost there. Could it be that our minds, fragile yet open, sometimes tuned to the faint frequencies of forgotten ages, like shells holding the sound of the sea, perhaps we too carry the memory of lives not our own? And here comes the mini-climax. If déjà vu is an echo, then it is the closest thing we may have to communion with the past. Not knowledge, not proof, but feeling, the recognition that others were here, that their presence lingers invisibly, that we are not as cut off from them as we think. In those fleeting instants, time collapses, and we belong not only to ourselves, but to the chain of all who have lived before. This thought comforts as much as it unsettles. Déjà vu may be the earth whispering back to us, reminding us that forgotten civilizations are not fully gone. Their stories are dissolved, their names erased, but their presence still hums quietly in the rhythm of the world, and sometimes, if only for a heartbeat, we hear it. If civilizations before us truly existed, then the question becomes, what are we in relation to them? Are we their continuation, carrying fragments of their fire into our age? Or are we a complete restart, beginning again on a planet that erased every trace of what came before? The hook is sharp. When we look at our tools, our machines, our art, we see progress. But progress compared to what? If there were others before us, then our story may not be the first ascent of intelligence, but the second or the third or the 100th. We may not be pioneers, but inheritors. Or perhaps not even that. Perhaps we are simply another cycle of the same experiment, beginning again from zero, with no memory of those who came before. Here lies the conflict. To imagine ourselves as continuation is comforting. It suggests that the wisdom of past civilizations somehow survives in us, through myths, through instincts, perhaps even through genetic memory. It means we are not alone, that the thread of intelligence never fully broke. But to imagine ourselves as a reset is more unsettling. It suggests that nothing lasts, that whatever they achieved, it vanished so completely that we began as though they had never been. In that vision, we are fragile sparks, always at risk of being snuffed out, always beginning again in the darkness. And yet, perhaps both are true. Consider how memory works in individuals. Some memories remain vivid, while others vanish entirely, leaving only impressions, moods, fragments. Could humanity itself be the same? Perhaps we are a partial continuation, carrying faint echoes of forgotten civilizations, though not their full memory. A myth here, a déjà vu there, a fascination with the stars or with lost lands. Enough to hint, not enough to prove. And here comes the mini-climax. Whether we are continuation or restart, the meaning is the same. We belong to the rhythm of the earth. If we are continuations, then we are part of a great lineage, carrying forward a fire too powerful to be extinguished completely. If we are restarts, then we are proof of resilience, the earth's insistence on trying again and again until intelligence blooms once more. This thought softens the fear of erasure. Even if our civilization falls, it may not be the end. Perhaps, like those before us, we will be forgotten. But perhaps forgetting is not the final silence. Perhaps it is simply the clearing of space for something new to rise just as we did. Continuation or reset. In either case, the song continues. If civilizations before us left little or nothing behind, then what of us? What will remain when our cities crumble, when our voices fall silent, when our lights go out? What will we leave for the future to find, if anyone is there to look? The hook is piercing. When we think of legacy, we imagine monuments, skyscrapers, satellites, digital archives, endless data floating in the ether. But what happens when the power fails, when servers rust, when glass shatters? In 1,000 years, most of what we cherish will be gone. In 1,000,000, almost everything. Our legacy may not be what we expect. Here lies the conflict. We want to be remembered for our art, our wisdom, our progress. But what may endure is different. Plastics in the soil, carbon in the atmosphere, radiation in stone. Our most lasting gifts to the earth may not be our beauty, but our scars. And if another intelligence were to rise millions of years from now, these are the traces they would find. Not our stories, not our songs, but the chemical ghosts of our mistakes. Yet there is another side. Perhaps our legacy is not only in matter, but in influence. The earth has already been reshaped by us. Species have vanished because of us. Landscapes transformed, climates altered. Even if no one remembers us, the world itself will carry our fingerprints. We will have changed the trajectory of life, just as earlier catastrophes, asteroids, volcanoes, ice ages, shaped it before. And here comes the mini-climax. The question of legacy is not what lasts, but what matters. If forgotten civilizations existed, their legacy may not be ruins or monuments, but us. Perhaps they cleared the way for our rise, their absence making space for our presence. If so, then even in silence, they are part of our story. And perhaps we too will someday be the invisible ancestors of whoever comes next. This thought softens the weight of erasure. To leave something behind is inevitable. It may not be what we choose, but it will be real. And meaning does not depend on eternity. Meaning is in the fact that we lived, that we changed the earth, that we added our voice to the long chorus of existence. If others walk here after us, they will walk on the traces of our presence, whether they recognize them or not. If the earth has erased civilizations before, then why should ours be different? We like to believe that our technology, our reach, our knowledge will protect us. But the truth may be more sobering. Perhaps our civilization, too, will vanish without a trace, leaving no memory for the future. The hook is stark. Imagine the ruins of our world, not in 100 years, not in 1,000, but in 10 million. Skyscrapers ground into dust, highways swallowed by forests, satellites burned in the sky, oceans washing clean the coasts where cities once stood. What would remain? Perhaps nothing recognizable, perhaps not even a whisper. We may live, strive, and fall, and the earth may cover us so completely that it will be as if we were never here at all. Here lies the conflict. We believe our achievements set us apart. We can split atoms, map galaxies, send voices across the world in an instant. But permanence does not care about brilliance. Stone wears away, steel corrodes, data degrades. Even our most advanced creations are fragile against the scale of time. If there were others before us, then perhaps their lights were as bright as ours. Perhaps they too thought they could not be forgotten. And yet they were. This possibility unsettles us because it strikes at our deepest desire, to matter. We want to leave a mark that endures, proof that we existed. But what if erasure is inevitable? What if the destiny of all civilizations is silence? In that vision, Our entire world, our history, our culture, our art, may someday be gone so completely that no one, not even the earth itself, remembers. And here comes the mini-climax. To accept this does not strip us of meaning. It transforms meaning. If nothing lasts forever, then the value of life is not in permanence, but in presence. Our civilization matters not because it will be remembered for eternity, but because it is real now, in this moment. Like all before us, we burn while we can, and that is enough. This thought softens the fear of forgetting. If others before us vanished without trace, their lives were still real. Their dreams still mattered. Their civilizations were still true, even if we cannot see them now. And if we too are erased, then our time will remain ours. Our existence will not need proof to have been meaningful. If civilizations vanish, if their memory dissolves and their works crumble, then where does meaning lie? Perhaps it is not in eternity at all, but in the rhythm of the cycle itself. To live, to fade, to be replaced. This is not failure. It is the pattern of existence. The hook is gentle. Look at the seasons. Spring blossoms, summer thrives, autumn falls, winter rests. None lasts forever, yet each is complete. None fails because it ends. The beauty of the cycle is that it turns again and again, bringing renewal. Why should civilizations be different? Why should we demand permanence when everything in nature teaches us that value lies in belonging to the cycle, not escaping it? Here lies the conflict. Our pride makes us resist this truth. We crave eternity. We want to stand outside the rhythm, to be the one exception. Yet in resisting, we bring ourselves only fear. We fear collapse. We fear erasure. We fear silence. But what if the true peace comes from acceptance? To see that even if we vanish, we will not be alone. We will join all that has come before, folded back into the earth, making way for what will come after. Consider the forests. Each tree grows, falls, decays, and nourishes the soil for new life. The forest itself endures because no single tree does. Perhaps civilizations are the same. Egypt fell, but humanity endured. Rome fell, but culture endured. And if humanity itself falls, life will endure. The cycle is larger than us, and in belonging to it, we find our place. And here comes the mini-climax. Permanence is an illusion, but belonging is real. To be part of the cycle is to be part of something greater than ourselves. Forgotten civilizations were not failures because they ended. They were participants in the endless rhythm of becoming. And so are we. Our worth is not in resisting the cycle, but in living our part of it fully, knowing that the earth will continue to sing long after our voices fade. This thought soothes. It frees us from the burden of eternity. We do not need to last forever to matter. We only need to belong to the cycle of earth, to the flow of time, to the great chorus of life that has risen and fallen countless times before us. Eternity is not our gift, but participation is, and in that there is peace. And so, after all the questions, after myths, ruins, shadows, and silence, we arrive at a simple truth. We may never know if civilizations came before us. The earth has hidden its past too well. Stone erases, oceans swallow, time dissolves. And yet, perhaps the answer is less important than the question itself. The hook is soft but steady. To wonder if we are the first is to feel humility. It pulls us out of our illusion of uniqueness and sets us gently in the rhythm of the earth. Whether we are pioneers or merely participants, our existence is no less meaningful. We are part of something vast, mysterious, and endlessly renewing. Here lies the conflict. If we demand certainty, we will be disappointed. The earth offers no final proof, no uncovered city, no undeniable artifact that can answer our questions beyond doubt. Silence will likely remain. But perhaps certainty was never the point. Perhaps the purpose of the question is not to solve history, but to reshape our perspective, to remind us of our fragility, our impermanence, and our place in the great cycle of time. And here comes the final climax, gentle and quiet. To know that we are temporary is not a cause for despair. It is a call to presence. Forgotten civilizations, if they existed, were real while they lived. Their voices filled the air. Their feet pressed into the soil. Their dreams reached for the stars. Even if nothing remains, their lives mattered, and so will ours, whether or not the future remembers us. This thought brings peace. We do not need eternity to be significant. We do not need to be unique to belong. Our worth is not measured by permanence, but by the depth with which we live our moment. To ask if others came before is to recognize that life is bigger than us, that intelligence may rise again, that the song of existence has many verses, and we are only one of them. So tonight, as you rest, perhaps let the question remain unanswered, not as a burden, but as a comfort. If there were others before us, then we are kin across time. If there were none, then we are the first to dream, and that dream is enough. In either case, we are part of the same earth, the same mystery, the same cycle of rise and fall, and as the silence deepens, may it carry not fear, but calm. For even in forgetting, there is meaning. Even in impermanence, there is beauty. And even if our civilization vanishes without a trace, we will have lived, and that is enough.